Welcome to the Sandwich Crunch, where we navigate the trends and issues for boomers and seniors at home, in the community, and the workplace. And I'm very excited today. We've a guest, Debbie Ponte. She's a long member of our community as well, and she is the director of Foothill Community Assisted Living Facility in Angels Camp. And I had the opportunity of actually meeting with you, and it was quite a eye-opener to visit the facility. So welcome, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So I thought you could kick it off, tell us more about the facility, what you offer, and obviously this is a growing need as our boomers are aging at 10,000 people a day, and we are growing older and older and older and older.
I know. Wish we could be younger. But
I wish we could go backwards. That would be nice. So I thought you'd share about the facility and the different things that you offer at the facility.
Okay. Well, Foothill Village is a senior living community, and we're located in Angels Camp. We opened in November of 2001. It's a home away from home for seniors. So we find ourselves with seniors who can no longer live at home for a variety of reasons, maybe medical reasons, maybe social needs, whatever the reasons may be, they start looking at alternatives. And so at Foothill Village, we offer a lot of living options. And I call it living because there is a perception out there when you move into a facility, you're like 1 foot in the grave.
That's a very big perception.
It is. So it's something that we deal with quite a bit. That's why we call ourselves Foothill Village Senior Living, and offering a variety of options. We have various living arrangements that residents can move into a home and make it their home. So the nice thing about it is that they bring their own furnishings and basically establishing a new home for themselves. Most find themselves downsizing because over the years we tend to collect a lot of stuff. Some call it clutter, but we collect a lot of stuff. So people are downsizing, and when they move into Foothill Village, they can live in what we call independent living, which is for the senior who is basically physically able and mentally competent to make good decisions and live on their own. And the reason they're starting to look at community type living is that perhaps it's difficult to cook, or they don't enjoy cooking like they used to. And the housekeeping duties get a little tougher, and perhaps they've lost the ability to drive. And so at Foothill, we offer a restaurant of sorts where they can pick and choose what meals of the day they like to have, so they no longer have the hassle of cooking and shopping, and nothing worse than a meal for one. And so we have our restaurant available. We also have housekeeping services. So folks come in and once a week clean the home from head to toe. And that makes it nice because they take away the dirty work of having to clean your home and getting on your hands and knees and scrubbing your bathroom floor and washing the windows and things like that. Transportation is another big reason why people move. If you're no longer driving, especially in a small rural community, it's hard to find public transportation.
Very hard.
That kind of meets the needs of a senior. And so we have a bus that takes people to places like Sonora for shopping, and Murphy's, and San Andreas, and Angels Camp.
I've seen you around.
So yes, our big bus gets a lot of attention. But they don't have to worry about driving, and perhaps maybe they've lost their license, or they've lost the interest in driving, or really in this day and age with the price of gas and insurance, they find it one less thing they can get rid of and kind of save on that financial pocketbook. But perhaps the biggest reason people are moving is for the socialization. As seniors, as we all, and if we lose our spouse and our children have moved on and they're busy in their lives, then they often don't maybe visit as often as one thinks they should. It's seniors living with seniors. And we have a lot of activities that we provide for folks. Everything from exercise, yoga, chair aerobics, walks, just all kinds of exercise, to trips like to Yosemite or to a restaurant to enjoy a nice outing for a lunch. We have guest speakers who come in and will talk about topics of interest. Authors will come in and share their books. So every day there's 2 to 3 activities for people to pick and choose from. So many folks look at us as socialization, and there's lots of things going on in our community, and then they don't have to cook and clean. So those are big reasons why people typically make the move. As we age in place, as we like to call it, there's the opportunity for assisted living. And for assisted living, that is a licensed service through the state of California, Department of Social Services. So it's kind of a social model versus a medical model of say, a hospital nursing facility. So very different. We're promoting wellness, we're promoting independence, but yet staff is there 24/7 to assist as needed.
How does that differ from a nursing home?
Well, in a nursing home, typically people are there because they have a lot of medical issues that need to be managed on a daily basis.
Okay.
Nursing homes typically have an RN, an LVN, maybe a mix of nursing on staff to be able to help folks with their medical needs, to where there might be a physician who visits frequently or is available on a 24/7 basis.
Okay.
In assisted living, we typically don't have nurses in our community unless they're coming in via home health. And doctors in a private practice may come to the community to see their own individual patients. So there's not a per se a community doctor like you would find in a skilled nursing home.
Okay.
In a social model, we're there to promote independence and guide people. So cues and reminders, assisting with medications, helping with hygiene care, encouraging activity, encouraging socialization, making sure that they are getting a nutritional meal. So that's assisted living in a nutshell. And then within assisted living, you oftentimes find people who get the diagnosis of dementia. And that's a huge, scary word for most people when you don't understand it. Most people like to label dementia as, oh, you must have Alzheimer's.
Right, and it's not just that.
And it's just not that. There are about 10 different types of dementia. Dementia is a cluster of symptoms. And many times it will go undiagnosed as to which it might be. And for some, it's like, who cares? I have a dementia. I don't know if it's Alzheimer's. I don't know if it's related to a dietary issue, if it's related to a cardiac issue. Whatever it is, I have memory issues. And so just recently, last year in fact, we took a portion of our building and we designed it to be what we call a memory care neighborhood. And it's a secured area. So all the bells and whistles are on the doors and people can live within this neighborhood. They all share a lot of common. There's care staff who are specially trained to work with people with dementia because you find yourself repeating a lot. You find yourself cueing and reminding, but for us, it's an everyday lifestyle. So we don't treat it special or we don't put them in a corner per se. We bring them out and we engage them with activity with others, or perhaps they do better with activities on a one-to-one basis. And that's kind of how we pattern their lifestyle. We kind of bring what they're looking for out and be able to encourage their own independence as best as they can.
So to encourage the best that they can bring out within themselves that hasn't deteriorated from the memory loss.
They, oftentimes people want to put people in a category, or as I call it, put people in a box. And, even all levels of living, nobody should be put in that box. But especially with dementia, every dementia person is different. And so we kind of come into their world. We don't oftentimes saying, oh no, they need to shower at 7 and eat by 8, exercise at 9. That's too much structure. We have to kind of live in their world and design their care plans to meet their needs on their time schedules.
Well, one of the things on dementia, though, that people, I don't think, understand is that there are some reversible dementias that are maybe not completely, but are reversible if it's due to medication or if it's due to, not vascular, but there are 3 others. There's a medication, and I am going blank tonight.
That's okay. It's confusing.
Yeah.
There are at times some dementias that can be reversed.
Right.
Medication is probably one of the
biggest ones. My mom had that.
Yes, and so you find sometimes when someone has that diagnosis, many times, that diagnosis will just be made and you're labeled. For those who want to know a little bit more about the underlying problem, there is testing and there are things that can be done in regards to testing. Primarily these kinds of opportunities are more in the Valley area, in the Bay Area, to where there's now clinics, you might say, that specialized in this. And so we do have people who go to these clinics, and then they truly, through a series of testings, will truly make that diagnosis of, yes, we believe it's Pick's disease or Alzheimer's or whatever it might be. But many times, and this is the sad part about it, is they get labeled as having dementia. And then it's this big black cloud that hangs over them from time to time. So we like to remove that black cloud and help people live their life. And, you know, that's pretty much what we do in memory care. And
it's a graceful way of doing it.
It is, it is. And then the other component that we offer is hospice care. So we have folks who have lived with us pretty much from the day we opened. So it'd be going on 13 years now. And they've kind of aged in place. And it comes to a time where, you know, their medical illness, there's not much more intervention that can take place. And they hear that, you know, there's nothing more that medicine can do for you. And so hospice is an option. And so they can remain at Foothill, they can remain in their, and again, we bring service to them. And that's a kind of a nice thing to do.
Hospice is a wonderful service.
It is.
Absolutely
At that
wonderful
end of
service.
life stage, it's
Yes.
nice to know that you can kind of be in your own home. You have people that you are accustomed to taking care of you. And again, it's not a label that we put on people. If they're on hospice care, most other residents and sometimes other staff members won't even know. So we try to make it a kind of a seamless transition when that occurs.
That's really nice. I know one of the things you talked about was how somebody will come in and go, I don't know if it's assisted living, and the stories you've shared about how people turn around because they've been living alone for so long. They've not been socializing. They've been, you know, very, very much isolated, and they haven't been eating well. They haven't been taking their medications correctly. And you've shared some amazing stories how people turn around.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. You really want to try to share those stories because not everything's dreadful about moving into a community.
Oh no.
You know, lockdown and I'll never be able to leave and the kids sell my
You're gonna be
house.
chained to your bed.
And, yeah, kids want my money. I'm not moving. We've heard most every story I think you could ever hear. You know, what I find most times is that, you know, we're not pushy. It's an option. It's nice to have this option in Calaveras County. We're the only community in Calaveras County that offers the living options, you might say. And so it's nice to be able, when you need that little extra help, that there is something in our community for people to have. I tell most people, you know, you have to plant the seed, and over time you nurture it, and pretty soon when it starts to bloom, pretty soon that individual realizes, you know, maybe moving into a community isn't so bad after all. And it starts generally with an inquiry and perhaps a tour, and we encourage to come by for a lunch or an activity. They might get an invite to join us on the bus and go to Yosemite. So that's kind of nurturing the seed, and pretty soon there's an awakening, you might say, and they say, you know, that's not so bad after all. You know, the other thing that can perhaps is the price. You know, we are private pay. We don't have any government funding. And most of the residents is Social Security, they're saving. Sometimes families are helping out. So there's a variety of mixes into how people pay for assisted living. And what we usually find is that when you do a comparison of what it costs at home, and maybe the mortgage is already paid off, but you have other living expenses, and typically your house needs maintenance, and so the roof, it needs replacement, or the hot water tank has gone out. You also find, to where I mentioned the car earlier, you know, pretty expensive proposition here to have this vehicle and pay insurance and drive it once a week. So you start identifying those things and you start writing these things down with prices to it. And then you start looking at what Foothill or places like us, we're all inclusive. So it's one check pays for all of these services. And each community kind of defines himself by maybe offering one service better than the other, or a little more of this, a little less of that. So when people are price shopping or comparison, those are things to be looking for. But generally, people will find the sense of security, the socialization. Those are hard things to put a price tag on. And
I
as
think they're
seniors,
impossible to put a price
yeah,
tag on.
when people are aging, it's kind of scary to be in your house all the time by yourself. And many times I'll tell the kids, you know, that, oh yeah, we visit mom once a week and we check on her and bring her mail and do her shopping. And I'll say, well, why don't you try staying home for a week when nobody calls and nobody comes by?
And you don't get any mail.
And you don't get any mail. You have the opportunity to just get in your car and go somewhere. You're home in your house 24/7 for 6 or 7 days before somebody visits. And if you can handle that, more power to you. But when you start talking about seniors, it's a very lonely, lonely time. And pretty soon it's the TV that becomes their source of socialization. And most times we've had people say, oh my gosh, mom watches so much TV that she's writing $1 here to this animals humane society and sending $10 to children, and oh, somebody called and said. So that's where seniors get a lot of scamming that way.
That's
And
very
the TV
prevalent.
shouldn't be their main source of socialization. So those are all things that people take a look at as we look at moving into communities like Foothill Village.
So now we have Foothill Village, and then we have other communities like nursing facilities that may be financed by Medi-Cal. But then we also have board and care, which would be private facilities. But those are more like a home, but they don't have the structured environment that you would provide necessarily. And do they have to follow the same type of laws and rules and regulations?
Under the Department of Social Services model, there's very licensing structures in different sizes. So our home is 76 homes within a big home. And 30 of them are licensed for assisted living, and the other half is licensed for independent. So we're considered to be somewhat on a medium scale. In Calaveras County, we don't have any other board and care homes, and board and care is for 6 beds or less.
Okay.
So typically it is somebody maybe taking their large home and converting it into a facility. And we all have to follow the same license structure. Care staff has to be fingerprinted before hiring. They have to have X amount of training. They have to show where they're financially feasible to operate such a business. Most people think, oh, it's going to be a moneymaker. You know, I have a 3-bedroom and I can rent out my rooms here and I can make a lot of money. Well, that's not necessarily true. People are living, but they're not getting rich off of a board and care because generally you have to have staffing to take care of that many people 24/7.
Right, and you have to be there 24/7. It's not like you can pick up and take off for a month and go on a vacation.
That's
it's not
right.
This is a
And
full-time
then in the valley, you find larger communities of 100 beds or more. We have another assisted living community in Calaveras County called Country Haven, and they're a smaller facility like Foothill. They're not considered a board and care because they have more than the 6 beds. And then other than that, it's county. So Tuolumne County has a few, Amador County has a few, and you find most assisted living communities prevalent in the Bay Area and in the Valley.
Yes, I mean, that's where you've got the more concentrated amount of money and income coming in,
Yes.
and they've been there for quite some time. However, we're going to be needing that here.
Well, we are,
a
and
growing senior market.
That's right. That's why it's so nice to have something in Calaveras County. We find most of the folks that live with us, it's kind of 70% of the people who have lived here, I'm going to say 30 years or more. And then the other 30% comes from the kids are living here. And they go down to the valley or they go down to the bay and they see mom and they visit mom. And lifestyle, they can't often maybe visit as much as they'd like. Mom would like to be closer. She's aging. So many times this 30% of our market are people from the valley or the Bay Area, the moms and the dads who are seniors, moving closer to their children who are living here full time.
And that's a really nice thing.
It's a great sense of relief, yes.
Because I know that a lot of, we did talk about how you do have a lot of geographical issues with families. And you had shared with one, I believe it was one of the residents who's, you know, the kids call all the time and check in and see how she's doing. And
they do.
Which is really good to hear because you often hear these other stories where the kids drop them off and leave them there and you never hear back from your kids.
You never hear, yeah. There's a few, those are few and far between.
Which is a good thing.
It is, it is. Yes, we have one resident who has lived in the Highway 4 corridor most all of her life. And his children lived on the East Coast. He passed away. She has no children. She has no living relatives except for her husband's daughter who lives on the East Coast. And so while she feels somewhat guilty for not having her stepmom so close to her, she's one that calls frequently. We've introduced Skyping, which has been a nice thing.
Oh, that's a great gift for seniors.
Social media has been kind of a fun thing to introduce to our seniors. So Skyping has been a lot of fun. The Facebook has been a great avenue for people who live far away to keep in touch with their moms or dads, or even the community to see what mom might be doing. So
or even the grandkids.
Oh yes, grandkids.
That's great.
Yes, grandkids are usually the ones who come in and set up Skyping for great grandma and grandpa. So it's kind of skipped that generation of the immediate children doing so. But it's been a wonderful thing. She's been able to keep in touch and celebrate special occasions, and she calls frequently. She's able to visit once a year. And that works. So a lot of times I tell people, they have this sense of guilt, like I can't visit daily or even weekly. And in this day and age, there's many ways to communicate and keep in touch. And so it's just being creative and trying to, instill a family connection for these folks.
Well, one of the things you shared with me, which I thought was rather humorous, because you said mail. The one thing they love to get is mail, not males, not men.
No, not
because the majority of your residents are females.
Yes.
But it's mail from the mailman.
It is.
And that's their favorite time of day.
That's a big deal. If you ever come into our community around the 11 o'clock hour, they're there to greet the postman, and you're for whatever mail might be coming their way. But it is true. Most of our residents, about 90% are female. Mm-hmm. They've lost their spouse somewhere along the way. The other 10% men. We do have a few couples. And most people say, what do people look for when they move into the community? And it's usually the socialization, the meals, and the mail. And that's the MAIL kind. So most of my senior women will tell me, been there, done that. And we love to have the friendships, but we're not looking for the companionship.
Yes, that is definitely a strong tone amongst women at that
Yes.
stage of life. Well, I read an article in, I believe it was the Calaveras Enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
of a young student who graduated from Bret Harte and became a CNA, and I don't recall his name, but he comes and plays the violin.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought that was an amazing article, because you do have a lot of interaction with the community that comes to the village.
Definitely.
To really interact with them.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Like most other organizations, we have a tremendous amount of people who come share their talent in some way with our residents. And so our activity program is really based on a zero budget. We have many people who come in, and like this young man, he actually works for us and plays the violin. And it'll be a planned activity to where he plays, or just sometimes he just feels the need to pull out the violin and he plays classical music, and it just makes everybody stop and look and listen and just in awe of this young man's talent. Because looking at him, you would never think he would be playing the violin. But we have several folks who play the piano. Tonight, in fact, the Calaveras Community Band is playing in our community.
Wonderful.
So that really rocks the house when they come in to play. So that's always a fun thing. But many service organizations also come in and do a lot of sharing. So.
That is a really wonderful mirror of our community, that we do have people that really want to give back and help, and especially our seniors, as they are our elders, and they're the ones that we need to nurture
and
and
so many
help
of our seniors at one point gave to our community. So this is one way that we can give back. The other interesting fact for a lot of assisted living facilities, but especially here in our community, is that we employ 65 people. And, probably considered in the top, I'm going to say maybe 15 employers in Calaveras County. If you discount government, you can't include school districts and government entities and that sort of thing. So, that's quite a powerful economic engine for a lot of our communities. And so for us, with 65 employees, that just payroll dollars back into the community. But the other thing people often forget about is the 80 residents that live there, and they shop in the community. So when I mentioned we take our bus to Angels Camp and San Andreas and Murphy's, and we do go to Sonora, those are all places that our seniors are shopping, and they're spending their income into these particular stores, which is helping to generate on the sales tax side. So we do a lot in regards to supporting our community on an economic base.
So it's a good give and take.
It is.
A wonderful give and take.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden gem, you might say.
Well, it is a hidden gem, and I'm hoping that we'll have more of those hidden gems come into this area, because this is such a beautiful area to have, and to have a facility such as that would be great to see more of those, because we are going to need them.
We definitely will. On a larger scale, in this day and age, for assisted living communities, the average price is about $3,500
per month.
And per month, and inclusive of all those services I mentioned. And when you compare it to a skilled nursing, which is basically government funded, if you are private pay, you're paying anywhere from $7,500 to $8,500 a month in a skilled nursing home. So, there is a challenge, you might say, in Sacramento to have government look at supporting assisted living industry, perhaps through the Medi-Cal program or whatever, because in some cases you can almost pay for two people versus the one in a skilled nursing home. And so there is, on a larger level, I belong to an association called California Assisted Living Industry. And, we're really trying to get government to take a look at those kinds of the assisted living industry, because there is opportunities to, make a shift, and put our priorities in place. Because I do find when folks can't afford our level of living, they go to skilled, but they don't necessarily need that level of living. But because of financial constraints, that's kind of where they're shifted to. And so we'll see what happens. It'll take years. I think managed care has to get worked out and a few other things, but there is from our industry to have government take a look and retool itself in regards to that, rethink the process. Because as baby boomers are moving up and getting a little older, like you said, thousands per day, it's estimated that by the year 2040, it'll be an increase of 232% of that senior. And they classify a senior now as 65 and older. So,
well, on that note, we as the public need to pay and support you, our supervisor, and others in the area of helping promote these types of facilities. Because whether you like it or not, if you're a boomer, your parents may need this. We're aging, we're going to need this. So on that note, I want to thank you, Debbie. This has been a pleasure. I had an absolute wonderful time visiting your facility. It felt like home. It really felt like home.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for joining us on the Sandwich Crunch, and we look forward to joining you and having you join us on the next show.